Jacksonville Symphony in Copeland's Appalachian Spring and Lincoln Portrait, plus Shostakovich's Fifth. Tickets at jacksymphony.org.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler. On today's First Coast Connect, what could a Michelin star mean for the local restaurant scene? We ask expert foodies how the coveted rating system could impact the First Coast. And from classical artist masterclasses to Emmylou Harris, we preview the upcoming season at the 25th annual Amelia Island Chamber Music Festival. Plus, a 16-year-old Supergirl. We meet a local surf champ ahead of a world qualifying competition in Jacksonville Beach. Join the conversation. Give us a call at 904-549-2937. You can also email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org or tag us on social media. It's all ahead this hour after the day's news.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Democrats won key campaigns in yesterday's off-year elections. Democrats won gubernatorial races in New Jersey and Virginia, and the Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani has won election as New York City's next mayor. NPR's Domenico Montanaro says the Democrats zeroed in on pocketbook issues, which are top of mind for most voters.
In all of the marquee races, people rated the economy as either the most important issue or close to it. And every race, in every single one, more than 6 in 10 sided with the Democrats.
NPR's Domenico Montanaro reporting. President Trump says yesterday's elections were not good for Republicans. Speaking to GOP senators at the White House this morning, Trump partly blamed the election outcome on the federal government shutdown. It's now a record 36 days old. He's again urging Republican senators to overturn the filibuster. Trump says it would allow them to pass a spending bill and reopen the government. Republican senators have been very reluctant to do this. Voters in California easily approved a ballot measure yesterday. It's aimed at trying to send 5 more Democrats to Congress in next year's midterm elections. From member station KQED in San Francisco, Marisa Lagos has more.
Voters in this solidly Democratic state overwhelmingly approved the initiative, known as Proposition 50. Its passage is a huge win for California Governor Gavin Newsom and House Democrats, who crafted the measure in August after President Donald Trump demanded Texas redraw its maps to give the GOP 5 more safe House seats. Speaking Tuesday night, Newsom said Prop 50 was about holding Trump accountable.
And so I want to thank everybody that stood up, not just for our democracy, but stood up for those that have feel bullied and intimidated.
Republicans called the measure anti-democratic and warned it will result in large swaths of the state losing their voice in Congress. For NPR News, I'm Marisa Lagos in San Francisco.
Colorado voters will raise taxes to pay for food assistance. Lucas Brady Woods has more.
The measure will increase taxes on Coloradans who make $300,000 a year or more, by an average of about $500. Most of the money collected will pay for Colorado's free school meals program. It will also help cover the state's share of SNAP, or food stamps, after Congress cut funding for the program this summer. Anya Rose is with Hunger Free Colorado, which backed the initiative.
More than ever, we need these state supports, and we need to make sure in our communities that we don't let people go hungry.
The measure is expected to raise over $27 million for SNAP in the next fiscal year and about double that for school meals. For NPR News, I'm Lucas Brady Woods in Denver, Colorado.
You're listening to NPR News.
You're listening to WJCT News, 89.9 in Jacksonville. Good morning, I'm Stephen Ponson. It is now 9:04. The Jacksonville City Council is set to consider a proposed ordinance that would let the city fund some nonprofit organizations during the federal government shutdown. The ordinance would temporarily allow some nonprofits to receive funds, even though the federal government's Office of Management and Budget is closed and unable to perform audits, as is required for those organizations to receive funding. The ordinance would apply to Jacksonville nonprofits receiving more than $1 million in federal funds, according to news partners at the Jacksonville Daily Record. The City Council will take up the proposal at next Tuesday's meeting. The Jaguars are bolstering their wide receiver room for the second half of the season. The Jags acquired Las Vegas Raiders wide receiver Jacoby Myers for 2 late-round draft picks during yesterday's NFL trade deadline. Myers is a 7-year NFL vet. He's been with the Raiders since 2023 after coming over from the New England Patriots. The Jaguars have sustained multiple injuries at wide receiver over the last few weeks. Rookie Travis Hunter is on injured reserve and will miss the next few games. And De'Ami Brown and Brian Thomas Jr. were both injured in last Sunday's game. The dry weather sticks around today here in Northeast Florida as our warming trend continues. We'll have highs reach the upper 70s to lower 80s. And there is a high chance for rip currents out at our beaches in Northeast Florida today. Tidal flooding is also possible along the Atlantic coast and St. Johns River Basin through tomorrow. Humid air returns to the area at the end of the work week, and as of now, it doesn't appear that our rain chances are going to increase. Highs tomorrow in the upper 70s to lower 80s.
Support for NPR comes from the Kresge Foundation with Pathbreakers, a podcast about transforming communities through innovation. From revolutionizing higher education to supporting artists who are driving change. Pathbreakers is available on podcast platforms.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning. I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, how a single star could change the First Coast food landscape. We ask 3 experts how including the region in the revered Michelin Guide will impact the local food scene for restaurant owners, chefs, and customers. Later in the program, we meet the local superstar competing at this weekend's Supergirl Surf Festival in Jacksonville Beach. But first, the First Coast food scene is about to be taken a lot more seriously as the Michelin Guide expands its restaurant rating system to include the First Coast next year. Here to tell us what it could mean for foodies and the folks who cater to them, we're joined by Waylon Rivers, executive chef at 36 Granada in St. Augustine. Good morning, Waylon.
Good morning.
We're also joined by Lauren Titus, publisher and co-founder of Edible Northeast Florida magazine. Lauren, good morning.
Good morning.
And we're joined via video by Hanna Raskin, founder of the food section and writer for Jacksonville Today. Hanna, good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm very excited to talk to all of you, and you are all such talented culinary experts. You each have very different backgrounds, so I'm going to try to introduce each of you a little more as I get to you. But Waylon, let's start with you. You're the executive chef, as we said, at 36 Granada. That is a kind of combo restaurant, part French, part Vietnamese. But you were formerly at Black Sheep Restaurant in Jacksonville. You started at Restaurant Orsay. So you have a long, rich history here in Jacksonville and in the culinary world. You've said that there's a lot of buzz on this topic. Tell us what people in the food world are saying about the fact that the Michelin Guide is going to at least expand its footprint, its coverage area to include North and Northeast Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to, several colleagues in the industry and, always have my finger on the pulse as far as like Michelin, just, been watching that as my career grew. Just it's interesting to me, and I like visiting Michelin-rated restaurants as much as I can in different areas. And it just brings a lot of opportunity to the area, and as well as the challenges that both can be great because that challenge will help restaurants grow and bring in more staff opportunities, people that are interested in having that kind of recognition to the area that may have not have thought of it before, and it brings a highlight to the restaurants that are already here from the outside and the people that already eat out in our community. So it brings a lot of buzz and excitement and brings challenges that we may have never seen before.
Yeah. So, Lauren, you, as we said, are you publisher now for Edible Northeast Florida. It's a magazine that you helped found. You've worked in the Northeast Florida culinary scene now. I mean, you've lived here since the 80s, and so you've watched the scene change and emerge. For First of all, what is a Michelin star? What is the significant, or even the Michelin guide itself? If you don't get a star, what does it mean to have the guide cover this area?
Well, it brings attention to the quality of the dining scene wherever they go. You know, it started as a guide to encourage people to drive more back in the 1920s. And it's
because
evolved.
it is actually linked to the Michelin tires.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a way to encourage people to explore. So once you have that recognition, whether it's a star or the other designations that Michelin has now, the Bib Gourmand, you become you're on everyone's radar. Diners, whether they're in your region or they're visitors. And in St. Augustine, certainly we have so many people coming, 6 million or so per year. So that has helped elevate our dining scene to begin with. It's more than just the fried shrimp and hush puppies that it became known for in the 50s and 60s. So just having that awareness by Michelin, it helps raise the bar for the restaurants, for the staff. It encourages people to come to the area, and it's good for the community overall. Florida, as in general, has been kind of overlooked from a culinary perspective. The James Beard Awards don't really look to us too much, except for maybe Miami or Orlando. So for Northeast Florida to get in the scope of Michelin, it is really kudos to the chefs and the restaurateurs who have helped shape the culinary world for the past 40 or 50 years.
Why is the Michelin rating system so revered?
It's seen as an elevation. They look at the quality of the technique of the chef. They look at the overall experience of the restaurants. They look at where ingredients are being sourced. They look at the service that the restaurants are providing. So it's seen as this superior dining experience. So for a town like St. Augustine, small town, 15,000 people, or even Jacksonville as a mid-range city, it's demonstrating to the outside world that there's something here that's worth visiting, that's worth eating at.
Yeah. Hanna Raskin, your pieces, as we mentioned, are published in Jacksonville Today, including a wonderfully written and thorough and thoughtful assessment of Brine, which is a new restaurant that you reviewed. It was just published yesterday. But you were a longtime food editor at the Post and Courier in Charleston, and then you've created this website called The Food Section. And you yourself have won a lot of awards for writing about food, including from the James Beard Foundation. What does it mean to have the Michelin potential come to an area? I mean, what does it mean, practically speaking, for people who work in the industry, for customers who go to these restaurants?
That's a great question, Anne. So I speak to you from the future because the American South just had its first guide released this week. So we are right where the First Coast will be next year. Just to say, my daily newsletter, The Food Section, covers 11 states across the American South, many of which had not received Michelin attention until the guide this week. So what I'm here to tell you is that we have to remember this is a pay-for-play arrangement. The only reason they are coming to Northeast Florida is because Visit Florida paid inspectors to be there. And it is not, so in the case of the American South, there's a $1.6 million deal to have a Michelin guide to our region. I don't have the exact figures on Florida, but it's also in the millions. And as we know from a document released from Orange County, the pain does not end with that original amping up. The visitor bureaus can then purchase social media content from Michelin. So this is a really big money deal. And the reason I'm emphasizing this is because you will see it in the results. We certainly did. The standout city from a culinary standpoint right now in North Carolina is Wilmington. Wilmington did not pay separately for attention, although it was included in North Carolina. There is not a Wilmington restaurant on the list. There are some terrific restaurants in Beaufort, South Carolina, in Columbia, South Carolina, But interestingly, it's Charleston that paid a little bit extra, and the stars went to Charleston. So keep in mind, this is not an entirely quality-driven assessment.
Right. And in Florida, it has covered South Florida for some time. And as you said, places like Tampa, Orlando, Miami, those visitor bureaus that they have paid an amount to have that coverage. We don't know what Visit Jacksonville necessarily has paid. It's not clear if they have, but certainly Visit Florida has paid something to broaden that Michelin footprint. And it is not cheap, but it's my understanding that when that happens, it's sort of the local visitor bureaus that make the recommendations of restaurants for Michelin inspectors to visit. So that, your comments about Charleston might well be because the folks there are saying, well, these kind of are our top restaurants. These are the ones you should check out.
That's absolutely right. So Michelin is very proud of being independent, but they do accept, as you say, Anne, recommendations. So I would expect that if there are honorees in the area, it will be those that already have the stamp of approval from tourism professionals.
All that said, regardless of how they come here, it is obviously an incredibly prestigious thing to win a star, Waylon, or to win even a mention in a Michelin guide. Are you familiar enough with the rating system? I mean, I know you said you followed it, to kind of run us through what the options are, what the 1, 2, or 3 stars signify, or a 0 star, which is also something.
Yeah, I mean, just starting with the stars, I mean, 1 star, like you said, it all based off of travel and selling tires back in the day, and 1 star actually means if you're in the area, it's worth taking a trip to that restaurant. And 2, a 2-star restaurant would be if you're driving somewhere and it's worth a detour, maybe taking a little bit off the beaten path to get there. And 3 stars is ultimately it's worth the drive just to go to that restaurant. That's the ultimate goal. And then they have the Bib Gourmand, which is, just a recognition that, like, hey, they're on our radar and it's a quality restaurant. And that's the thing about the stars is they come and go. Like it's not just the first year you get them, you just keep them. So it's going to give you that constant pressure to keep those stars, and keep improving and keeping that level of execution and consistency. So it's not just a 1-year thing. This is like going to go on and keep going. You do lose stars if you change chefs. You can lose a star for that, so you kind of have to regain that. But yeah, I mean, that's ultimately how the guide works and how they do the ratings. So, but I mean, I've been to different levels of stars, and they're all very nice. And obviously the quality, and it's all about the guest experience itself and what you feel about it ultimately.
If you're just joining us, we're talking to Chef Waylon Rivers and food writers Lauren Titus and Hanna Raskin. We're talking about the expansion of the Michelin Guide into Northeast Florida. If you have comments or questions, you can give us a call on air at 904-549-2937. You can email us at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org, or you can reach out on social media. So what do we know, Lauren, about, I've heard that there's sort of something known as a Michelin bump, or a Michelin effect that can happen after a restaurant, is recognized by the guide. And that can be translated into a boost in sales, and revenues for a restaurant. So tell us a little bit about kind of the upside, first of all, of what that bump might look like for a restaurant.
Sure. Well, what I've seen is restaurants, excuse me, having an increase in reservations. The business certainly booms, but like Waylon mentioned, it's also additional pressure on the chef, the wait staff, the kitchen staff, to maintain that quality and to preserve the experience for diners. So yes, it's definitely exciting for the restaurants to be recognized. The media attention is great, but it's that ongoing pressure to maintain the quality of the overall restaurant that really can create more of a downside in the long term.
There is something there as well, for people who've frequented a restaurant and perhaps contributed to its popularity, who are accustomed to going and perhaps not having terrible wait times, or just even the clientele shifting as more people are coming from elsewhere to visit. It can kind of change the diner experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you have your regulars who have been there all along supporting you. And then with all the additional attention, you have people coming from, from everywhere, people planning their vacations or their trips around a visit to a Michelin starred restaurant.
So Hannah, when it comes to the ranking system, we sort of mentioned, there's this star system. It's my understanding that it really is primarily focused on the food experience, and less on kind of the surroundings or even the service. Can you clarify that?
As much as I can, which is that yes, Michelin says we look at the food exclusively. Now, I think the results show that's not entirely true, but we don't know, which is why this week, as those of us in the South have sort of reckoned with the list that was released, it's very hard to say, oh, that's wrong, because we don't know what the criteria is beyond that the food is supposed to be great. So, but what we do know is because the inspectors are looking not just for quality food, but for consistent food. It often, for example, Japanese restaurants are way overrepresented in the American guides because there is a emphasis on consistency in that cuisine, right? We know that tasting menus are always going to do well. And we have seen restaurants across the South, as well as in Texas and perhaps in Florida as well, in South Florida, shift from a standard a la carte menu to a tasting menu because there's no better way to guarantee consistency. So the reason I bring this up is another consequence for diners is things get more expensive. When you are eating an omakase menu, when you are eating a tasting menu, it is pricey. So it is not just a matter of scoring a reservation. It's a question of whether you can afford the meal once you get there.
What about restaurants themselves? This is not a low pressure business, obviously, by any means, Hannah. What do you hear from people in the industry who have been through this experience or who have already been awarded a star and might be dealing with how to manage that going forward?
It's incredibly stressful, but I do think that those who have been awarded a star realize that of all the many stresses that food and bev has had to deal with since the onset of the pandemic, too much business is a stress that is somewhat acceptable. But yeah, it's a big investment. We know in New Orleans, Emeril's completely redid their restaurant to chase a star. So when you're putting out, tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars in hopes of something that's not guaranteed, that's a really tough decision for any business owner.
The culinary scene overall, Waylon, has evolved a lot in the last 10 years. What do you see in terms of the potential for local restaurants to earn a ranking? I mean, not necessarily looking at your own spot, but just big picture.
I mean, yeah, I think that there's opportunity for growth, and maybe this buzz can, keep continuing to grow the talent levels. We have a lot of very talented chefs in this area, and there's some great, infrastructure but like growing that infrastructure as far as like, the culinary schools that we have are great, but maybe bringing in some more. I've heard buzz about that, like some more, institutionally, and then having that buzz of bringing in just people from outside that can help keep growing. There's a good relationship with farmers here, which is great, to have that local product sourced at your restaurant that helps highlight, what we're doing here. I think that's a big part of the Michelin is just like the ingredients used and continuing to push that forward, I think is a big, benefit from this. And I think that, there's with opportunity comes, the challenges, but I think it's just will only bring people up to a new level.
We'd love to hear your thoughts about a Michelin star rating system coming to the region and to Northeast Florida. You can reach us at 904-549-2937. Or if you just have a favorite restaurant you want to tell us about, you can also email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. We have an email from Mark, and he says, is Michelin looking at Jacksonville related to all the Shad Khan bringing the Four Seasons here? Lauren, I'm curious what your thoughts are about how that plays into the overall scene, the overall cachet.
Yeah, whenever you start bringing in the higher quality restaurants, it definitely helps get us more visibility overall. I know Asado Life in St. Augustine is going to be part of the Shad Khan development, and they've got a chef that could definitely be considered as one of the possible Michelin chefs going forward. Um, so I think anytime the overall community is seeing growth, it's seen as an attractive place for restaurants and for chefs to move into, then that benefits all of us.
And Hannah, we should say, I mean, you talked about the kind of restaurants that are typically recognized, whether that's, restaurants that offer these pricier tasting menus or Japanese restaurants because they have this sort of consistency baked in, although it's often not baked, but, consistency built into their process. Um, but it's not just for fine dining, right? I mean, there are restaurants that can earn stars that are not even expensive.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So, I mean, in the list that was just released this week from the American South, we have Taylor Grocery in Taylor outside Oxford, Mississippi, that serves nothing but fried catfish. Domelice's Po' Boy Shop in New Orleans is on the list. It's not surprising that if your restaurant has been around a century, you've probably got consistency licked, so to speak. So, yes, it's absolutely true that inspectors are looking for places of all kinds. So every single restaurant in Florida will be eligible for inspection. As to whether they receive stars, we don't know. I will say what we've seen from inspectors both in Texas and the American South is they sort of find what they're looking for. They found a whole lot of barbecue in both places. And so you can tell they kind of came in thinking these lists are going to have barbecue on it. So, are we going to see a seafood place in Northeast Florida? Probably. They find what they go out to find.
I want to drill on that a little bit, Hannah, because one of the things that I've seen from, restaurants and cities that have become ranked in the guide is this need to preserve the regional identity, or to make sure that, that is something that's maintained even as there is greater attention and perhaps more outside folks coming to that place for a dining experience. Northeast Florida is a place that sometimes has been accused of not really having regional identity, whether it's culinarily or otherwise. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are about what an inspector might look for here. I mean, seafood is an ingredient, not necessarily a food style. So, what do you think people will be looking for? How do you think this region, as it's evolved, is starting to be known as?
That's a great question. And I think, unfortunately, we have to keep in mind these inspectors really are parachuting in. And so they are going to go for what's old and known and stereotyped. So all of what's exciting that's happening around Jacksonville, you're better off asking a local than a Michelin inspector. We saw several almost unforgivable inclusions on the American South list. If you ask any local, they would say, not only is this not representative of the region, but we know their questionable labor conditions at this place. Locals know their market best. So, will inspectors be able to locate the vibrancy that we see at, pop-ups and bakeries and the things that make Jacksonville such a delicious place to eat? I can't guarantee it.
Yeah. Waylon, what do you think about the region's culinary identity? How is it changing? Do you see it becoming any more uniform in any way?
I mean, just like, the fact that Jacksonville in this area is like a, transplant city, it does make it hard to establish a, unique identity because you have so many people coming in from different places. So, I mean, I think just looking at the overall quality of the restaurants, I mean, I think, the goal is just to provide the best experience. I think there's, new food trends that come and go, and that kind of directs, how the style of restaurants go here. I mean, you have your classic, your places, you have, your French, but you're also having some more Asian influence, and, the seafood obviously is a big part of it, even though that's not a style of cuisine. It's definitely like a focus on the ingredients, and that will kind of dictate the kind of food you do. I think, it's hard to pinpoint the exact direction it will go in and kind of where we are, but I mean, I think there's a lot of good options in the area, and I think having that versatility is probably up to our benefit.
Yeah. We have a question from John on Facebook. He says, Hanna Raskin on the panel rather blew the lid off the bottom line as the Michelin guide is pay to play. Cities and states must donate millions to get listed. Otherwise, their diners won't get ranked. Lauren, I mean, how does that in any way, in your mind, delegitimize it? Or, I mean, because it is really a considered the pinnacle in many ways of accomplishment for a restaurant to get that ranking.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, I'm a little cynical about it, of course, because it is the pay to play. So it recognizes the quality, but also diners should know that it's not an opportunity that just falls naturally into a restaurant's lap. It's a concerted effort by the visitor bureaus, by the restaurants themselves, because I know of several restaurants in the area that are determined to get a Michelin star.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't diminish from the quality of what they're doing and the experience, but it is something that it adds to the restaurant's desire to stand out in a different way.
I saw in a local article, I think it was in the Business Journal, where the owner of Lotus Noodle Bar in St. Augustine had said basically, I'm transparent. Like, my goal is to get Michelin stars. And, he comes from a restaurant training in New York where he worked at a restaurant which had 3 stars every year for, more than a decade, probably 2 decades. So, his background is in working in a restaurant that has achieved that level of recognition and maintained it, which is, impressive. But what would a chef whose goal is to do that, how might that change the way they operate? Would it change anything that would impact the dining experience negatively, or would that all just be good for customers and good for the experience?
I think it's good for the customer, certainly. It definitely puts more pressure and expectation on the chef, so that every time you go, if that consistency is one of the traits that Michelin looks at, then that if you have this an off night for any reason, that lowers the feelings that diners have for that restaurant. So it definitely puts more pressure on the chef and the people who work for him.
Mm-hmm.
The kitchen staff, the wait staff, they all have to measure up to that expectation of a Michelin restaurant on a day-to-day basis.
We've got a call from Benjamin in Jacksonville. Benjamin, go ahead. Is that you? Benjamin, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. I was calling. I work at a local mom and pop establishment that started over 30 years ago, and they've really built themselves up and maintained their quality and consistency using fresh seafood and local ingredients. And Southern Table Hospitality is the name of the group. They own multiple restaurants, and I was wondering, how do Michelin investors get aware of what's good and local in the area?
I'm going to ask that you, Waylon, for you to tackle that one, since you may well best know.
I mean, from my research, like, their Michelin is kind of like, I think they're not very they're pretty discreet with their, like, you don't really know who is coming into your restaurant, and getting, like, reaching out to them directly, it would not be something that I think happens. I mean, it would be more like them being in touch with, like, the local tourism bureau, and then just those connections, because Michelin is, by nature secretive, because they don't want you knowing who they are coming through your door. So it's, it's not meant to be like, like a backdoor handshake kind of thing. I think, they really do want that integrity of, not knowing, and you just having to be on your game every day, which also brings a lot of that pressure. But to my knowledge, I mean, I don't know if there's like a person you could actually reach out to. I think it's just connections, or just trying to do, be consistent every day and putting your best foot forward, regardless of the stars or not.
And Hanna, I think I cut you off there a little bit earlier because I thought that was a phone issue. But so I want to go back to you if you were going to say something there. But I also want to direct a question to you that we got an email from Shannon, who said, in the panelists' opinion, what restaurants should be considered for the Michelin Guide? How might this development impact local food producers, farmers, and the broader culinary ecosystem?
Sure. So I'm glad to answer that question because it returns to the one I wanted to speak on, which is I'm going to disagree totally with Lauren. I do not think the arrival of Michelin is great for customers. I think in an ideal restaurant situation, and I think it's the kind that Benjamin is describing, the customer comes first, not the inspector. And so I prefer a restaurant where they're taking chances and they're experimenting and they're doing what's right for their guests, not checking items off a list. You can certainly tell when you go to Lotus that is a restaurant with inspectors and stars on its mind. I personally prefer a restaurant that cares about its guests. So I do not think this is a great development necessarily for local diners, except for that it does put in people's minds, oh, they have Michelin restaurants in Jacksonville, which could come as a shock to someone in Minneapolis, And so, yes, it brings more money into the local economy. Fantastic. Anything that helps our small businesses thrive, wonderful. But whether the local diners experience is going to improve, again, I wouldn't bank on it. As for producers, sure, if there's a focus on ingredients, let's all hope that people will reconsider ordering from Cisco and order from our local farmers. That's great. I don't know if there's enough of a demand or even enough product for that to really, move the needle. But yeah, I think it's really just the diner who comes up short in this equation.
Do you have thoughts about that, Lauren? I mean, there obviously, there's ups and downs to this, as this conversation has made clear. One of the ways that a restaurant can feel pressure, I would guess, too, is, once you have that ranking, you have staff, you have vendors, you have all kinds of people that you deal with on a daily basis that might view that star rating as something that they should have a piece of, whether it's by increasing their wages or by increasing their prices.
Well, as people are cutting back on their dining out, they're looking for more experiences. And going to a Michelin rated restaurant helps provide that experience, whether it's, you have to wait 2 or 3 months to get a reservation, or you're able to walk in on a slower night. It's still that experience out of the ordinary that people are looking for more and more. And yes, if you're doing something just for the Michelin rating, your guests may not appreciate that, but overall, we're finding that diners really want to have something that's out of the ordinary.
Yeah. Waylon, what are your thoughts about that in terms of pressures that you might feel as a restaurateur, as a chef, when it comes to maintaining that consistency or dealing with people that might, if your sous chef is saying, well, look, I deserve a raise, we've got this inspector coming again, we have to, maintain this quality. Does that increase some of the pressures that restaurants feel when it comes to cost?
I mean, I think that there's pressures already there built into being in a restaurant. And I think at the end of the day, our goal, myself, is just to put up my best foot forward, regardless if I'm getting rated by a Michelin inspector or someone on Yelp. There's already everything you do every day is reviewed, possibly. So that's kind of just I just look at it like it's part of my job, and I'm just here to be the best I can be, and just have that consistency regardless of who's rating my food, because I want to provide the best experience for the guest. And at the end of the day, if that's if that comes with one thing or another, like a rating or an award, it really, all that matters is how the guests feel about it, and people come to eat at your restaurant. So that's the most important goal.
Hanna, I will say, when I look at your food reviews, I look at the pictures and I think, wow, that looks amazing. I would love to eat that, even if it's a food I don't necessarily regularly eat, but it just looks wonderful. When I was going through the Michelin-starred restaurants, particularly the 3-star, the highest rated restaurants, and the photographs of them in preparation for this, I found myself, almost like, someone at a modern art exhibit that doesn't, get what they're looking at. It literally, everything to me looked like a ping pong in a bowl. It was like, where is the food? What's the defend that for me?
Oh, no, I completely agree. I
Okay.
mean, I think that is such a beautiful illustration, literally, of what I mean by, it serving the inspector rather than the diner. I believe in food that makes you want to eat it. I mean, what a great example. And you don't even like that kind of food and you want to enjoy it. So yeah, I don't know how much joy and pleasure is part of this process. I think you're right. They really prefer the technically correct. But as we said, there is the Bib Gourmand category, other than the stars, which are the more casual restaurants. And I wanted to return to that just to say, on Michelin's site, they do say, let us know if you know a place that wants to be inspected. So it's not just a matter of hoping. And two, one of the places that gained a Bib Gourmand this week was a little halal Uzbek restaurant that isn't even a restaurant. It's just occupies a pizzeria. It's kind of behind the door. We wrote about it in the food section a year ago. I'm willing to wager that's where the inspectors found it. So what I mean to say is, yeah, if you can, if you get local press, my guess is that inspectors are keeping up with it.
Can I just, as a really quick lightning round here, get your restaurant recommendation for the listeners from each of you? Going to start with you, Lauren.
Oh dear, I always hate recommending restaurants because I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings. There is a restaurant in St. Augustine called Llama. It's a Peruvian restaurant, outstanding every time I go.
Also hard to get a reservation.
It is,
but worth a stop.
I
Waylon.
mean, I'd have to I'd be remiss if I haven't been to this restaurant yet, but one of my best friends is the chef there, 14 Prime. It just looks beautiful, and I know the stuff he does is always good, so it's the top of my list to go to.
Hannah?
I've been to 14 Prime. I also recommend it, but the one I always bring up is I put it this year on Garden and Gun's best new restaurant list. Abstract Filipino Essence is a standout for me.
All right. Well, thank you for the recommendations. Thanks for the conversation. Hanna Raskin, Lauren Titus, Waylon Rivers, thank you all so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Up next, a local chamber music festival welcomes an award-winning international talent for its 25th anniversary season. Welcome back. From artist master classes to Emmylou Harris, the 25th annual Amelia Island Chamber Music Festival features a lineup with an impressive musical range. Here to talk about it is Robin Lamp, an acclaimed opera singer and the event's executive director. Robin, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you for having me.
So you have been in this role for about a year now, but your background is as a performer. You're a classically trained soprano. You have performed with the Boston Lyric Opera. You have soloed in Verdi's Requiem at Carnegie Hall. You have a very impressive voice and a very impressive resume. So tell us how you ended up running the show at the Chamber Music Festival.
Yes, I studied my voice. Basically, since middle school, I have been obsessed with singing and the voice and, made that my life's mission. And then COVID hit and I was in South Florida. Well, I was in Boston, but I was based in South Florida and the entire industry kind of shut down. And throughout, that kind of 2-year COVID time, I started studying, taking some business classes, accounting. I started working for a performing arts company based in Miami. I worked remotely with them and just gained a lot of different skills that would put me into this position and put me ready for this position with the Chamber Music Festival as its executive director. So I moved to Amelia Island when COVID hit and I absolutely fell in love with it. It's beautiful. The community is incredible. There's so much performing arts going on. But there was a void of vocal music in the area. So two friends of mine started an opera company. I was always attending the Chamber Music Festival as an attendee before I even applied for this job. So I have a history with it, and I was always impressed by the musical artists that they brought in.
Well, I want to talk to you about the 25th season, but before that, I do want to just take a listen to a performance that you did. The song is Summer of 1915.
Oh,
Knoxville?
yes.
Yeah, let's
Yes.
just take a listen. Just lovely.
Thank you. Yes, I love that piece. It's by Samuel Barber, and it's this longer piece, probably about 12 minutes, about just a little kid living in Knoxville in the summer of 1950 and 15, and the experiences that they had. It's a beautiful piece.
Yeah, it is lovely, and it's lovely to hear your voice. So, tell us what are the highlights for you in this upcoming season? I mean, 25 years is a significant landmark.
Yes, the festival started in 2001 it was founded by Christopher Rex, the principal cellist of the Atlanta Symphony, and he got actually a group of women together to do the first season, and they raised the money and made the thing happen. And it was about a week long in June, and then 25 years later, here we are. You know, it was mostly run by volunteers until it grew to the point that it needed a professional staff. So we have 3 people on staff. And we're really just going all out for our 25th season to celebrate. Our headliners, Emmylou Harris, and some people say she's not chamber music, but we argue that she is. It's like American chamber music rather than European. So
Interesting.
bluegrass is definitely, was played on porches and in, small bars and things like that. So absolutely chamber music.
And tell us just kind of the definition of chamber music, even broad enough to include a singer-songwriter like Emmylou.
Yeah, chamber music is intimate, small forces on stage. It's not a 70-piece orchestra. Usually 1 or 2 people per line. So and no conductor. So kind of a very democratic, collaborative thing going on.
And something that kind of allows for this exchange of feeling between performer and audience.
Absolutely, yes. Much more intimate than sitting in a 2,000-seat theater, and listening to something like that. Another headliner we're bringing in is the Orpheus Chamber Orchestra, and they just celebrated their 50th anniversary. And they, again, a smaller, like 20-piece. You wouldn't think of that as being chamber music, but it is for an orchestra. That's quite a small orchestra. And they have no conductor. They use democratic methods to choose who their soloists are going to be, what rep they're going to perform. And it was just started by a group of students that wanted to perform together after school. So we're very excited about that. They're coming with Marc-Andre Hamlin, a pianist, and they'll be doing performing some Schubert and other pieces, and that will be on March 3rd.
And we mentioned master classes. So in a lot of cases, these performers are coming in for at least 2 nights, essentially. They'll come and they'll do either a meet and greet kind of event where people can get to know them personally, or they'll do a master class, and then they'll follow it up with a performance the next night. So will you just talk a little bit about the role of education in the chamber schedule?
Yes, absolutely. I'm, one of my goals as the executive director is to really expand the education in the community, the impact we have in the community. So this year we're doing 4 Meet the Musician events where you can, the night before the concert, come to a free interview, question and answer session with the artist in an intimate setting, have a glass of wine and listen to them and get to know them a little bit before the concert the next day. And then we're also, we have for a long time, almost since our inception, been do master classes with local students. So we're partnering with the Jacksonville Symphony Youth Orchestra and the University of North Florida this year to have piano, cello, strings, and wind master classes for their students. So that's something that is really important for a young artist to be able to get feedback from a professional.
And you also have some nights that are structured around, like the opening night is kind of this fancy meal at Salt at the Ritz-Carlton.
Yes.
And so it kind of combines entertainment with.
Yes, absolutely. It's like, people are, the people who just go to a concert to listen are, few and far between nowadays. So I'm always trying to combine music with an experience, make it something memorable. So whether it's the special venues that we perform in that are so beautiful and historic, or we have a meal or a wine pairing or something, to not elevate the event, but to make it special.
And Nassau County, I mean, Amelia Island really has blossomed in terms of its arts offering. It was not always considered a destination, even though this event has been around for a long time, but just a lot has built up around it.
100%. There is a ton to do in the arts, performing arts and visual arts on the island. We have the jazz festival, the dance festival. We now have the opera company, classical music, community theater, musical theater, all sorts of stuff. So whatever your poison is, come to Amelia Island. You can find it. It's so there's a lot going on.
Yeah. Well, the event is the Amelia Island Chamber Music Festival. We've got a link on our website. You can find out a lot more info on their website. But it's a pleasure talking to you, Robin Lamb. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Anne. It's a pleasure.
All right. Up next, a 16-year-old Supergirl. We meet a local surf champ ahead of a world qualifying competition in Jacksonville Beach.
The Florida Theater presents Pat Metheny. The jazz guitarist, composer, and bandleader brings his Side Eye 3+ tour to Jacksonville on Tuesday, March 17th at 8 p.m. Tickets and information available at floridatheater.com. Congaree & Pen, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congareeandpen.com.
Step into the shadows for Noirvember to Remember at WJCT Studios. Friday, November 21st, Rita Hayworth blazes the screen in Gilda. Then, on Saturday afternoon, don't miss the matinee classic, Murder, My Sweet. Cap it all off Saturday night with Bogey and Bacall in Dark Passage. 3 films, 2 days, a festival of noir. Tickets and info at wjct.org/film.
President Trump's supporters call him a heaven-sent savior. His critics call him an authoritarian. But the U.S. is still a democracy, so to understand how Trump is transforming the idea of government by the people and for the people, it's critical to first understand what Trumpism is itself.
It is a form of government that is the antithesis of bureaucracies, which are answerable to the rule of law.
That's on the next On Point.
Today at 11, here on WJCT News 89.9.
The price of life in America is up. Groceries, childcare, rent, healthcare, and a lot more. This was all before the government shutdown, which has now put millions of Americans in a more precarious situation. What does the economy look like from where you sit? We'll hear your stories and ask experts for their take on the economy. That's next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. An event aimed at elevating girls and women in the sport of surfing is back in Jacksonville Beach this weekend. Here to tell us about it, we're joined by Linnea Mons. She is a professional surfer who hails from Atlantic Beach. Good morning.
Good morning.
We're also joined by Rick Bratman. He is the event producer, a producer of the Super Girl Surf Festival. Rick, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. So, Linnea, you're 16 now?
Yes.
You started surfing at age 10. How did you first get involved? I understand you were an early competitive swimmer.
Yeah, so that's right. I grew up swimming because my mom was a swim coach. She always just wanted me to be like comfortable in the water and the ocean because we lived at the beach. My dad has always been a surfer, so he never like forced me into it, but I was always like boogie boarding down at the beach, and we were just there all day. And then he sent me to a surf camp called Thompson Surf School in Jacks Beach, and I went there for a week, and just like after that, I absolutely loved it, fell in love with surfing, and couldn't get enough of it after.
And you became a kind of ranked and a successful winning surfer pretty early. I mean, it wasn't something that you were. I've seen these pictures of you as just a little teeny kid, on your surfboard, and you were already, winning championships.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I always did a lot of sports when I was younger, and I feel like they always kind of clicked fast, but surfing just clicked super fast. And like I was surfing so much, and we have a great surf community here in Jacksonville, so there's a ton of opportunities for competing when I was younger. So I just got all that time in, made it really easy to kind of jumpstart my career and just keep competing and having fun and just enjoying all of it.
And folks watching our live stream can see some video of you surfing right now. And I've always been curious. I mean, the surf festivals, you just never know, right? The weather, you never know the sea conditions. How difficult is it to prepare even day to day, when the surf is changing and the weather is changing and the winds are changing?
Yeah, I mean, surfing is such a special sport because you never know what you're gonna get. I've never surfed a day that's similar to another day. Like it's always different. The conditions always change, so you can't really prepare in that way. Just like of course you can figure out the sandbar, surf as many different conditions as you can, which I always try to do to diversify my skill. But you can't prepare that much. You can just watch the waves before your heat and try and connect with the ocean, understand it the best you can. But it's a very unpredictable beast that you have to tackle. So it's definitely a very challenging sport, but I love the challenge.
So, Rick, this is the 5th year of this event at Jacksonville Beach.
Yep, 5th year in Jacks Beach and 19th year overall.
Okay, why Jacksonville Beach? Why is this the place that it is now settled into? And what about the beach community there is kind of a good location for it?
We've been doing the event in San Diego since 2007, and we're East Coast based. So we're based down in Melbourne, a couple hours south of here. So we really wanted to do an East Coast version of Supergirl because it had been so successful. And we talked to probably 15, 20 communities that are surf communities. And Jack's Beach just stood out for a couple reasons. Number one is the passion and commitment from the surf community here. I think is second to none for everywhere on the East Coast. There's also a lot of young female talent in the area, which we wanted to give them an opportunity to show their talents. And then also, Supergirl is an event that's much more about just surfing. It's an entire festival that celebrates women in a variety of different sports and entertainment. And so in Jacksonville Beach, they have the Seawalk Pavilion, which right there is a beautiful concert venue. It allows us to do a much more robust festival environment than just doing a surf competition.
And so there is all of these elements. There's music, there's a variety of participatory events and competitive events. It's not just surfing. It's there's kind of rollerblading. There is yoga. There's a beer tent. There's food trucks. There's bands. There's like kind of the whole gamut.
There's something for everybody. So we will have about 2,500 women competing in 10 sports there. In addition to surfing, there's volleyball, soccer, flag football, pro skateboarding, pro inline skating. There's a 5K race for the first time this year, which we're really excited about. There's female lifeguard competitions. There are about 20 classes in fitness and yoga and Pilates and dance. There's a line dancing event this year. And then I think one of the things that really brings people out is the music festival. So there's 14 artists that are going to be performing live, including the band Perry, Julia Cole, Plain White Tees, Hyrie. So a bunch of like national artists, as well as we always leave at least half the spots to help platform emerging female talent.
And we should say, Linnea, that this is a qualifying series event. So it is something that kind of on your journey to future competitions. What is it that you're hoping to achieve personally?
Yeah, so this event, like all other events, it's a super big deal. This one's just a little bit extra special because it's a Supergirl. But yeah, so this contest is super important for me this season because I'm hoping to maximize as many points as I can get in this contest to help my campaign towards the Challenger Series. So it's definitely a big deal for all the girls that are here and just super special for all of us.
Yeah, well, we look forward to following your career as it continues to sail on because you're doing wonderful work. The event is the 5th annual Supergirl Surf Festival. It's November 8th and 9th at the Jacksonville Beach Pier and Seawalk Pavilion. We've got a link on our website for more information. Linnea Mons, Rick Bratman, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right. And that's our program. Thanks for listening. If you have comments or questions, you can send either to First Coast Connect at WJCT.org. And if you missed anything, you can catch our rebroadcast tonight at 8 o'clock, or you can find our entire archive on your favorite podcast platform. Join us tomorrow when we talk about history that doesn't suck and the professor behind the popular podcast. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The St. Augustine Amphitheater presents New Orleans jazz and hip-hop artists Trombone Shorty, Orleans Avenue, and Juvenile, Sunday, March 1st at the St. Augustine Amphitheater. Tickets and information available at theamp.com.
This is WJCT News.